Hello, my fellow Americans. My name is Eric Strauss. I am running for president in 2020. As you see, I'm a guy in his garage. I've got my tools behind me, and this isn't a set I've established for the purpose of being a guy in the garage. This is actually my garage, from what it looks like. It's a little sloppy at the moment. Anyhow, tonight I'd like to go over my foreign policy agenda, and I'd like to do so quickly because wouldn't it be great if one of the main things that people talked about when considering a president was the actual policies they advocated? Here are mine, and I will answer any questions about them at any point. Anybody wants to ask me anything. I know what I want to do, and I know why I want to do it. And I believe it's the best thing for America. I'm here to try to convince others that I'm right, not because I'm very convincing, but because the ideas themselves have the most merit. Here's my international agenda. A. Military. 1. Cease live fire military operations except where directly responsive to examples of transgression against the United States. So that means end the drone strikes, bring U.S. ground forces home, participate in no UN peacekeeping operations, classify all international criminals as such, denying them propaganda help in their nefarious interests with words like terrorist. We're going to get rid of that kind of language entirely. They're international criminals. That's what they are. They aren't states committing acts of violence. They're ideological groups. So that makes them criminals, and there's no point in distinguishing them further than that. 6. Return to Congress the power constitutionally afforded it, the power to declare war, and constrain the executive's ability to use military force barring such a declaration. Granted, sometimes the commander-in-chief is going to have to use military force when attacked is a direct response and may not have time to go through Congress as far as declaring war in certain circumstances. I understand the world's changed from 1776. Regardless, ongoing military actions that don't fit into a real war definition, which requires us to declare war against a nation, not against an ideological group or group of criminals. That's something we need to consider. So, okay, let's move forward. I'd like to additionally reduce the size of U.S. nuclear arsenal unilaterally while maintaining nuclear primacy for the United States. That's not a problem. We have plenty of nuclear weapons to retain nuclear primacy while bringing down the size of the nuclear arsenal. I'd like to see that done. Is it a top priority? Maybe not, but it's something I'd like to see done. Fulfill all monetary obligations to veterans. I want to, also 7 or 8, reduce the size of the standing army. We need to spend less money on active military and more money on veterans, retired military. So that means I want to fix the appalling and unacceptable healthcare situation for veterans who have suffered injury in war. They have fought for our nation. It is not our place to deny them healthcare now. This is a very different matter than any sort of general healthcare discussion. If you're talking about veterans who've gone to war for our nation and have become injured, then they need to be taken care of properly, and that's it. So, we can reduce the size of the active military and direct a lot of those resources towards veterans care. We have made a lot of promises to our veterans. We need to fulfill those promises. These are the bravest Americans, the ones who go and fight for our country across the ocean, who get injured and die. Their families have the most vested interest in this whole thing. I want to make sure those lives are respected. I want to make sure our veterans are respected and those lives are respected, which is why I want to bring them home. There's no reason to be over there fighting for things that aren't our problem. We shouldn't be wasting American lives on other people's problems. All right, let's move on now past the military onto sanctions. Sanctions. Number 1, I'd like to end sanctions on Cuba. Number 2, I'd like to work, and that's easy. A no-brainer. They haven't worked at all. There's absolutely no justification for maintaining them. It harms all parties. Hurts us probably more than anybody else. Cuba's undergoing a transition right now anyway, which will finalize the proof that the sanctions didn't work, as sanctions almost never do. Okay, work with international state interests to reduce trade barriers internationally, empower individuals to bypass state intrusion into international trade via the internet, reduce or remove sanctions on so-called rogue states, acknowledging the abject failure of such policy to effect meaningful change. 5. Operate from an understanding of the nature of intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation, and coercion as aspects of human psychology and behave accordingly. What does that mean? It means stop acting as though if we try to force other people to do stuff, and we successfully do force them to do things, that it's going to be a helpful way to go. It's not. And the reason it's not a helpful way to go is because people who've been forced to do things, they are your enemy at that point. You have subjugated them. You don't like that. I don't like that. International people don't like that either. We need to enable the intrinsic motivation of those whose interests don't align with our own or whose values disagree with ours to find what's beneficial to them in our truths. Hegemony. The U.S. Eric. The U.S. can and should continue to behave as a genuine, strong global hegemon and can currently understand what that means. Number one, real U.S. hegemony does not stem from U.S. exceptionalism, but from U.S. principalism. Number two, the U.S. need respect the sovereignty of other countries, even while acknowledging that some of those with whom we do business will link to horrific actions. Our doing business with them does not endorse those actions. The real solution to international conflicts over core values, social justice, autonomous control, and global interconnectedness lies in the preservation of an ecosystem that creates genuine discursive clash in which all parties have as much access to as much information as possible. So we want the mechanisms of liberty, the mechanisms of individuals' empowerment, which is to say consensual action, the ability of individuals to choose for themselves what they want to do provided it doesn't transgress against others. We want that to happen on an ideational level so that people's ideas are actually clashing with each other and people go, okay, well, here's why I'm right. No, here's why I'm right. And those ideas have a chance to compete in what a Supreme Court Justice, who, slightly embarrassingly, I can't remember the name of it at the moment, referred to as the marketplace of ideas. It's a famous concept and has a lot of play in a lot of different contexts as far as being a good warrant to explain why things need to be discursively promotional. Okay, our collective affirmation of basic goods like free expression, equality between men and women, tolerance for diversity, and justice in the letter, spirit, and application of the law. And virtues, we must demonstrate before we can preach them. If it is true that our American democracy is an example of exceptionalism, if it is true we are a shining city on the hill, then we need to behave as such. And before we start telling others how to be shining cities on the hill, we need to make sure our shit's gleaming. Sorry to use a little profanity as a presidential candidate. I'm a little bit rougher than most you're going to encounter, but I genuinely want what's best for the country, and I genuinely want to represent everybody's views. I'm not ideological. I'm not libertarian, though many people might call me such. I'm not liberal, though some people call me that, and I'm not conservative. I am a non-partisan candidate for president who is advocating the value of his own presidency on the grounds that he's got the clearest vision, can explain it why this is the best way to go, and has a genuine respect for everybody's perspective. I recognize that not everybody legitimates on the same criterion, that some people aren't looking to see what's most principled but what's most effective. Some people aren't looking to see what's most effective but what's most respectful. All these values need to be balanced, and I hope to do so as President of the United States. I have a GoFundMe page, which I'll link to in this video, and I also have a Talking with Famous People collectible store, which I strongly recommend anybody go check it out. You can buy time with yours truly for $60 an hour at the moment. That's the price is probably going to go up, and you're basically able to direct my time however you wish, whatever you want to talk about. If you want me to analyze something, if you want me to do personality typing, whatever. So that's at twfpcollectibles.com/services, and I'll put the links there for that as well. Thank you all for listening to my international agenda. My name again is Eric Strauss, presidential candidate for 2020, and God bless America.